welcome to reformed thinking. You know, uh, we spend a massive amount of our lives trying to build these systems of control.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we invest in home security.
Right.
Right. We monitor our daily health metrics with smartwatches. We buy comprehensive insurance policies.
Yeah, we like to think we have a firm grip on our circumstances. We
Right.
arrange our lives to, mitigate risk and keep the unpredictable at bay. We want to believe we are the masters of our own fate.
We really do.
We construct these very elaborate illusions of autonomy.
But then you hit the one wall that completely shatters all of that human control.
Yeah.
You hit the boundary of human mortality. I mean, you hit the grave.
Mhm.
We try to sanitize it and we try to avoid thinking about it, but death has always been the final monument to human impotence.
It really is.
Since Adam rebelled in the Garden of Eden, acting as our first federal head, death has reigned as an absolute tyrant over the human race. It takes the greatest monarchs, the sharpest minds, the strongest empires, and turns their grandest ambitions into dust. It is the absolute definition of a hard stop.
And that concept of the federal head is the essential backdrop here.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at Adam, we are looking at our legal representative. He acted on behalf of the entire human race.
Right, the whole human family.
Precisely. When he rebelled, death was the legal penalty. And that penalty was passed down to all of us.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the grave,
Yeah.
we are talking about a cosmic prison that no human being has the legal or physical ability to break out of.
Wow.
The world looks at the grave and concludes that all hope must be adjusted downward.
Adjusted downward, yeah, that makes sense.
Human philosophies are entirely built around coping with that absolute loss. But the source material we are examining today presents a historical reality that shatters that entire paradigm.
Right, and our mission for this deep dive is to investigate Matthew chapter 28, verses 1 through 7. We have a stack of sources today, 2 highly detailed theological expositions of this text.
Yeah, lots of material.
And our goal is to understand how a single historical event, the empty tomb, overturns every human authority and secures the believers standing before a holy God.
Absolutely.
And I want to speak directly to listening right now. We are not going to do a simple Sunday school overview with felt boards.
No felt boards today.
We are doing an exhaustive verse-by-verse theological investigation into the cosmic collision between human autonomy and divine sovereignty.
If we look at the historical stakes here, the scene in Matthew 28 addresses one of the most agonizing human burdens.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when death appears to have the final word?
Right.
When the Roman authorities, colluding with the corrupt Jewish religious hierarchy, rolled a massive stone across the entrance of the tomb of Jesus of Nazareth, they believed they had successfully contained the threat of the Galilean.
They thought it was over.
They absolutely did. They set a gubernatorial seal, they stationed an elite military guard, and they congratulated themselves on having permanently silenced the claims of the Messianic king.
I want to start by painting the picture of the physical and political environment before the resurrection even occurs.
Yeah, that context is huge.
We have to establish the massive human obstacles placed in front of the tomb to appreciate the sheer scale of what happens next.
Right.
So set the scene for us. What is the socio-political climate of AD 30 or 33 in Judea?
Well, Judea was an incredibly volatile province at this time. It was simmering with nationalist zeal, constantly on the brink of revolt, and burdened by the oppressive weight of Roman imperial taxation and military occupation.
It was a powder keg.
Exactly. And this is all happening under the direct Roman procuratorship of Pontius Pilate.
Right, Pilate.
Pilate was a man who had already failed several times to keep the peace without resorting to mass slaughter.
Wow, yeah.
So his position with the emperor in Rome was very precarious.
He's on thin ice.
Very thin ice.
Yeah.
The execution of Jesus was not just a routine punishment. It was designed as a brutal public demonstration of Roman supremacy.
And crucifixion was the specific tool for that message, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Rome didn't just want to execute people. They wanted to make a horrific spectacle out of them.
Mm-hmm.
It was a method chosen to display maximum shame, prolong physical agony, and warn anyone else against rebellion.
Yeah, it was a deterrent.
It was a brutal declaration that any challenger to the imperial throne would be utterly crushed.
Precisely. And what makes this specific execution unique is the unholy alliance taking place.
The collusion.
Yes. Rome wasn't acting alone here. You have the Roman Empire colluding with the Jewish religious leadership.
Right.
Now, the religious leadership was divided into factions that usually hated each other.
Right, they did not get along.
Not at all. You had the Sadducean chief priests who controlled the temple economy and were very politically compromised with Rome. Then you had the Pharisaic legalists, who controlled the theology of the local synagogues and despised the Roman occupation.
So they were enemies.
Bitter enemies. Yet they united over one thing. They viewed Jesus as an existential threat to their socio-political stability and their theological hegemony.
They realized that if the people followed Jesus, the Sadducees would lose their temple revenue.
Yep.
The Pharisees would lose their religious authority.
Absolutely.
And Rome would come in and crush their nation. So they orchestrated a complete legal mockery.
That is what it was, a mockery.
They held an illegal night trial, brought false witnesses, and then pressured Pilate into executing Jesus on the fabricated charge of political treason against Caesar.
That collusion is a critical detail in our sources.
Yeah.
The religious hostility of the Jewish leaders and the imperial might of Rome stood together in absolute defiance of the promise of Christ.
And they did not stop at the crucifixion.
No, they didn't. They requested a massive security apparatus for the tomb. They remembered Christ's prophecy about rising on the third day. They didn't believe he would actually rise, of course.
Right, they thought it was a trick.
Exactly. They feared a manufactured deception by his disciples, a stolen body conspiracy.
Let's look at the specific layers of human security placed on this tomb, because it is staggering when you break it down.
It really is.
First, you have the massive stone rolled across the entrance. We are not talking about a pebble here.
No, not at all.
These stones were often heavy, disc-shaped rocks rolled into a downward-sloping groove to block a tomb entrance.
Right.
It would take several strong men using levers to move it back uphill.
Yeah, you couldn't just nudge it out of the way.
Second, you have the imperial seal.
Yes.
What does that seal actually represent?
The seal represents the absolute legal authority of the emperor.
Wow.
They would take a cord, stretch it across the stone, and secure it with clay or wax, stamped with the official insignia of the Roman governor.
So it was highly official.
Oh, yeah. Breaking that seal meant an immediate death sentence.
Instant execution.
Right. It was a visual warning basically saying, the full weight of the Roman Empire stands behind this rock. Do not touch it.
And then the third layer, you have the custodio.
Yes, the custodia.
Which sounds serious.
It is. This is a Greek transliteration of a Latin military term.
Okay.
This is not a group of local temple security guards or mall cops.
Right. These aren't night watchmen.
No, this is an elite, battle-hardened military guard detail stationed under strict martial law.
Wow.
These were professional Roman soldiers. In the Roman military machine, falling asleep on watch or abandoning a post was a capital offense.
So their lives are on the line.
Absolutely. They would be executed, often by being burned alive in their own clothes.
That is brutal.
So these men were highly motivated to stay awake and protect their post at all costs.
I want to introduce a thought experiment for you listening to this.
Okay.
Think about the utter absurdity of the situation.
It is absurd.
Imagine trying to lock a bank vault from the outside to keep someone inside. You have armed soldiers, highly trained killers, pacing back and forth in front of a rock, guarding a corpse.
Well, you better like that.
They are attempting to use physical military force and legal wax to govern the realm of the dead.
It is the absolute peak of human autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
The Sanhedrin's request for this guard was a pragmatic attempt to permanently silence the Messianic king.
Right.
They are trying to build a fortress against the decree of Almighty God.
A fortress against God.
Yeah. The authorities believe that if they just apply enough military discipline and political leverage, they can keep the Son of God in the grave.
They really thought they could outmuscle heaven.
They did. Men may conspire, manipulate the law, weaponize religion, command soldiers and seal stones, but they cannot stop the divine timeline.
No.
This apparatus represents the finality of the tomb from a purely human standpoint.
Which brings us directly to the collision.
Right.
We have established this impenetrable human fortress. Now we move to the cosmic disruption in verses 1 through 4. We transition to the sudden, overwhelming divine intervention that shatters all of this human effort.
Yeah, the contrast is stark.
The scene opens as the first day dawns, and we see the arrival of the women.
Matthew places the scene very specifically after the Sabbath, as the first day of the week begins to dawn.
Right.
Mary Magdalene and the other Mary come to see the tomb. Their presence provides vital historical continuity for the narrative.
How so?
Well, they watched the crucifixion on Friday, they witnessed the burial, and they knew exactly where Jesus had been laid.
So they are credible witnesses.
Precisely. The sources point out that Matthew is not describing a spiritual idea separated from material reality.
Right.
The same Jesus who died was buried, and the same physical tomb that received his body is the one these women are visiting.
And it is crucial to understand their psychological state here.
Oh, yeah.
They did not come expecting a miracle.
Not at all.
They came with overwhelming grief to honor a corpse. Mark's gospel tells us they brought spices to anoint the body. They are acting in deep devotion, but their theological understanding is still incomplete.
Right.
They are coming to pay their final respects, completely unaware that heaven has already moved.
And that grief leads right into the divine intervention.
Yeah.
Certainly, there is what the Greek text calls a seismos megas, a great earthquake.
Let's investigate that phrase, seismos megas.
Okay.
Because when we hear earthquake, we think of a natural tectonic shift on a fault line.
Right, geology.
Exactly. We think of geology. But this is something entirely different, isn't it?
Yes, the theological context here is critical.
Yeah.
In biblical literature, and specifically in Matthew's gospel, this phrase is the physical signature of God stepping into creation.
Okay, unpack that.
Well, the noun seismos is used throughout the Old Testament Greek translation, the Septuagint, to denote the immediate entry of Yahweh into the physical world.
Right.
Think about the cosmic shaking of Mount Sinai when the law was given. The mountain trembled violently because God descended upon it.
Mhm.
It mirrors the tearing of the temple veil
Mm-hmm.
and the shaking of the earth at the crucifixion just days earlier.
So this isn't just tectonic plates shifting.
No, this earthquake is not a geological accident. It is the physical manifestation of the presence of God accompanying the descent of the angel of the Lord.
Wow.
The earth shakes because heaven has acted.
And then we have the appearance of this angel of the Lord.
Yeah.
The text describes his appearance like lightning and his clothing white as snow.
Mm-hmm.
These are classic biblical markers of heavenly purity and uncreated light.
Absolutely.
It creates this intense, immediate contrast with the moral darkness of the conspirators who put Jesus in the tomb.
The visual imagery is designed to communicate brilliance and heavenly majesty.
And what does this angel do?
Well, he descends, he rolls back the massive stone, and then he does something fascinating. He sits upon it.
I want to challenge this narrative slightly just to clarify something that I think confuses a lot of people.
Here, go ahead.
Did Jesus need the angel to move the stone so he could get out? Like, was the resurrected Christ trapped inside the tomb until heaven sent a bulldozer to open the door?
That is a fantastic clarification to make.
Yeah.
No, the stone was not removed to allow Jesus to rise, as if the risen Christ were trapped in a dark cave waiting for assistance.
He is the Lord of glory.
Exactly. Physical barriers do not constrain his resurrected body. The stone was rolled away to let the witnesses look in.
Look in, yeah.
It was removed to reveal the historical fact that he had already risen.
I love that. The doors opened not for the prisoner to escape, but for the public to inspect the empty cell.
Precisely.
And the visual of the angel sitting on the stone is incredible.
It is.
It's like an opposing army capturing the enemy's flag and then using it as a picnic blanket.
Yeah.
It is a display of absolute dominance.
The sources refer to it as a silent sermon.
A silent sermon.
Yes. The angel sitting on the stone displays absolute calm triumph over human obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
What the human authorities set up as an impenetrable barrier, heaven turns into a resting seat.
That is amazing.
The sovereignty of God is not frantic. It does not struggle against human might. It is enthroned, even over the very symbols of death.
Meanwhile, look at what happens to the human authorities.
Right.
Verse 4 records the total collapse of the guards.
Yeah.
This is severe irony. You have these elite Roman sentries, men trained for brutal hand-to-hand combat, paralyzed by dread.
Mm-hmm.
The text says they tremble and become as dead men.
The Greek text links the shaking of the guards directly to the shaking of the earth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the verb used for their trembling shares the same root as the word for the earthquake.
So they are basically experiencing a personal earthquake.
Exactly. The very men who are armed to enforce the imperial will are physically and psychologically paralyzed by a single heavenly messenger.
Wow.
All the physical strength, all the military discipline, and the official assignment of these soldiers completely fail.
Yeah.
They cannot withstand heavenly glory.
The imagery is almost comical in its reversal.
It is.
The living soldiers look like corpses. while the crucified Savior, the man they were assigned to guard, has burst forth in immortal life.
Right.
You have the men assigned to keep the dead man in the grave becoming like dead men themselves.
This brings home a massive implication for you as a listener.
Yes.
No human system, no military might, and no religious conspiracy can resist the sovereign decrees of God.
None of it.
The physical world bends to his will. But there's also a sobering truth here about human nature.
What's that?
The Roman guards are living proof that unbelief may see overwhelming, undeniable, supernatural evidence and still not arrive at saving faith.
Wow, that is a heavy thought.
It is. Later in the chapter, these same guards accept a bribe to lie about what happened.
Right, they take the money.
They do. The problem with humanity is not a lack of data. It is the sinful heart's hostility to God. The collapse of the guards shows that the defenses of unbelief completely shatter when God acts. But terror alone does not equal repentance.
So we have seen the human fortress dismantled by the physical earthquake.
Yes.
Now let's look at the theological meaning of the event, which is provided by the angel's spoken word in verses 5 and 6.
Okay.
Up until this point, the entire scene has been visual and physical.
Right.
The earth shaking, the dazzling light, the stone moving. But now, heaven speaks.
And the spoken word interprets the physical event. The physical scene, without the word, would just be terrifying chaos.
Right, you'd just be running for your life.
Exactly. The angel speaks to provide divine revelation.
And the very first thing the angel does is divide the audience.
Yes.
He looks at the women and says, "Do not be afraid."
The angel uses an emphatic pronoun in the Greek to sharply separate the women from the terrified Roman soldiers.
Okay, explain that.
He is essentially saying, "Fear not ye."
Ah.
This contrast is highly deliberate. The enemies of God, the guards, have every reason to tremble before the manifestations of divine holiness.
Yeah.
God is holy, and for the sinner outside of Christ, that holiness is a consuming fire. Right.
But those who belong to Christ, even in their weak, confused, and fearful state, are comforted. The resurrection does not make God less holy. It shows that the Holy One has acted in mercy for his people.
We get to the absolute heart of the passage in verse 6.
Yes.
The angel says, "He is not here, for he has risen." Now, I want to talk about the specific grammar used here, because our sources dedicate a significant amount of ink to one specific word.
Right.
The phrase, "he has risen."
Yeah.
The text uses an aorist passive indicative verb in the Greek ogerthe.
Yes, ogerthe.
For someone who hasn't opened a Greek grammar textbook lately, why does a passive verb fundamentally change how we view this event?
Let's break down the mechanics of that.
Okay.
A passive verb means the subject of the sentence isn't performing the action. The action is being done to them.
Right.
Matthew intentionally chooses this word to highlight the action of God the Father. This is what theologians call a monergistic action, meaning one worker.
One worker. God alone is doing the work. Jesus is raised by the might of the Father as a judicial act of vindication.
Wait, I want to push on that for a second.
Sure.
Didn't Jesus say in the Gospel of John that he has the authority to lay his life down and the authority to take it up again?
He did.
Doesn't the Son raise himself?
The Son absolutely has the divine authority to take his life back up, and the Trinity works indivisibly.
Right.
But the repeated emphasis in the New Testament epistles, and highlighted by this specific verb in Matthew, is the Father's active role in vindicating the Son.
Ah. Okay.
Think about it in legal terms. Jesus died bearing the infinite wrath of God against sin. He submitted to the penalty of the law on behalf of his people.
Right.
The critical question for the universe on Saturday is, was that payment accepted?
Yeah.
Is the debt actually cleared, or is Jesus just another dead teacher?
Because if the payment isn't accepted, he stays dead.
Precisely. The resurrection is the Father's public legal declaration that the penalty for sin has been paid in full and divine justice is completely satisfied.
Wow.
The Father actively raises the Son to declare the debt is canceled, the work is finished.
That is massive.
It is. The resurrection is not a metaphor for springtime renewal or a vague symbol of hope. It is God the Father's decisive historical action to legally vindicate the mediator.
I like to think about it like an official...
Okay. Yeah.
You can sit in a prison cell hoping you are forgiven.
Right.
you can feel a subjective sense of peace in your heart.
Hmm.
But until that signed document from the governor is publicly gazetted and the warden actually unlocks the heavy iron door, you are still legally a condemned prisoner.
That is a great analogy.
The empty tomb is that signed document from heaven. It is the objective external declaration that you are free.
And that objectivity is reinforced by the next phrase the angel uses.
What's that?
The angel says, just as he said, or in the Greek, katjes eipen.
Okay.
The angel isn't giving the women brand new, previously unheard information. He's pointing them right back to Christ's own prophetic words.
It's a gentle rebuke, isn't it?
It is.
Sort of saying, why are you surprised? He told you this would happen.
It is a rebuke of their forgetfulness, but it also confirms Christ's prophetic authority.
Right.
Jesus had not just hoped for resurrection, he had explicitly promised it. He told them he would be handed over, crucified, and raised on the third day.
Yeah.
The empty tomb is not mute evidence that we can interpret however we want. It is evidence interpreted by the prior spoken word of Christ.
I love that.
His words are infallible. This calls the listener to trust the words of Christ before circumstances make them easy to believe.
And then the angel offers empirical evidence.
Yes.
He invites them to verify the claim. He says, come, see the place where he lay. This is such a critical point. Christianity is not based on a subjective, mystical feeling in your heart.
No, it's not.
It invites empirical, physical inspection. The empty slab is an objective historical reality.
The invitation utilizes the imperative verbs of physical sight, come and see.
Right.
This shatters any modern attempt to spiritualize or allegorize the resurrection.
Oh, yeah.
There are theologians who try to argue that Jesus only rose in the hearts of his disciples.
Right, like it's just an inspiring idea.
The angel rejects that entirely.
Yeah.
Matthew is grounding this narrative in a specific geographic place at a specific time with verifiable witnesses and public circumstances. The actual physical body of Jesus of Nazareth has been raised in incorruptible glory.
It's incredible.
But notice the order. The angel gives them the word first and then invites them to see. Sight serves faith when it is interpreted by divine speech.
We need to broaden the conversation now to explain why this historical reality matters for the listener's personal legal standing before God.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Our sources dig deeply into the theological weight and justification secured by the empty tomb. And this requires us to define two critical concepts, the active and passive obedience of Christ.
Right.
Break those down for us. What is the difference between active and passive obedience?
Well, in Reformed systematic theology, Christ's passive obedience refers to him bearing the penalty of the law.
Okay.
He passively submitted to the infinite wrath of God on the cross, shedding his blood to pay for the sins of his people.
Right.
He took the punishment we deserved.
So that zeroes out the negative balance in our account.
Correct. But a zero balance isn't enough to get you into heaven.
Right.
God requires perfect righteousness, perfect obedience to his law. That is where the active obedience comes in.
Okay.
Christ's active obedience refers to him living a perfect, sinless life under the law for 33 years, actively fulfilling all righteousness on our behalf.
Wow.
He loved God perfectly and loved his neighbor perfectly.
So, passive obedience removes our massive debt, and active obedience deposits his infinite wealth of righteousness into our account.
That is a very helpful way to visualize it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does the resurrection fit into this?
Well, if Christ had remained in the grave, the covenant of grace would be void. The elect would still be in their sins because there would be no proof that the sacrifice was accepted or that his righteousness was sufficient.
Right.
Romans chapter 4, verse 25 declares that he was delivered up for our trespasses and raised for our justification. The empty tomb is the proof that both his active and passive obedience have been fully accepted by the Father as a perfect propitiation.
This also perfectly validates the threefold office of Christ.
Yeah.
We see him as prophet, priest, and king.
We do.
As prophet, his predictions came true. He spoke the infallible truth about his own death and resurrection.
And as our great high priest, his resurrection demonstrates that his sacrifice was successful.
Right.
Under the old covenant, you had endless animal sacrifices that could never actually take away sin.
They just had to keep doing it.
The priests had to keep offering them day after day. But Christ entered the heavenly sanctuary once for all through the shedding of his own blood. He conquered the grave and lives forever to make intercession for his people.
And finally, we see him as king. He defeated the final enemy, death itself.
The resurrection is the enthronement sign of the Messiah's victorious reign.
Wow.
It guarantees a future literal fulfillment of the ancient Davidic covenant. The king who died is the king who lives,
Yeah.
and it guarantees his return. He will return physically to judge the living and the dead and establish his glorious kingdom upon the earth.
We need to look at how this objective historical reality of the empty tomb collides with other ways of thinking.
Right.
Our sources dedicate a lot of space to evaluating different theological and cultural frameworks through the lens of Matthew 28.
They do.
Let's look at the specific rejections mentioned in the text. First, the sources address Roman Catholicism.
Yes, the sources draw very firm boundaries here. They evaluate the Roman Catholic view of the Mass, which involves the continual representation of Christ's sacrifice.
Right.
The authors argue that treating the sacrifice as something that needs to be continually offered directly conflicts with the absolute finality of the empty tomb.
Okay, so it challenges the finality.
Exactly. The Father's singular act of raising the Son is the final word. It proves the sacrifice was a once-for-all, completed action. There is nothing left to add to it.
The sources also evaluate Arminianism, specifically the reliance on human free will.
Yes. The source text makes the case that if salvation requires our autonomous choice to make it effective, it diminishes the sovereign nature of what happens at the tomb.
Right.
Dead people do not assist in their own resurrection.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
The physical resurrection is entirely a sovereign, one-sided accomplishment by God. The sources argue this proves salvation is entirely a work of divine grace, independent of human assistance or cooperation.
Now, I found this next part of the source material fascinating.
Okay.
The authors shift from theological systems to modern cultural movements.
They do.
They analyze secularism and specific academic frameworks like critical race theory. Now, to be clear to the listener, we are looking at the theological arguments made by our sources here, impartially evaluating how the authors apply the text to modern life.
Right. We are just reporting what the sources claim.
Exactly. So, what do the sources claim about these contemporary movements?
The authors argue that these modern frameworks tend to reduce the human problem to temporal, social, or political struggles.
Okay.
They suggest that when a society views the world entirely through the lens of political activism, class struggle, or historical grievance, they miss the actual supernatural victory over death.
I see.
The sources claim that reducing the gospel to a social justice project or a political agenda ignores the physical resurrection of the God-man. The empty tomb demands total submission to the Lord of glory, not just participation in the political project.
That makes a lot of sense from a logical standpoint.
It does.
If your biggest problem is political inequality, you need a political savior.
Right.
But if your biggest problem is the wrath of a holy God and the inescapable reality of the grave, you need a resurrected king.
Exactly.
The sources also critique mysticism.
Yes, they do.
They point out that seeking private voices, subjective feelings, or fresh revelations ignores the fact that the angel pointed directly back to the objective, spoken, written word of Christ.
True spirituality, according to the text, is word-governed. We do not need to seek out new signs or ecstatic wonders because we have the completed apostolic witness validated permanently by the historical resurrection.
Right.
We rest on what has already been spoken and accomplished.
Which takes the focus completely off of our internal, fluctuating emotional states.
Oh, definitely.
And it forces us to look entirely at the objective historical work of Christ outside of ourselves.
Yes.
That transitions us beautifully to the final movement of the text. The sovereign mandate and application found in verse 7.
Right.
The empty tomb is not meant for idle contemplation.
No, it's not.
The objective truth immediately demands a sovereign mission. The angel commands the women, "Go quickly and tell."
We have to pause and consider who God chooses to receive the most significant news in the history of the cosmos.
It is surprising.
It is a total shock to the cultural norms of the first century.
Right.
In that society, the legal testimony of women was heavily discounted, often considered invalid in a court of law.
Wow.
If you were inventing a religion and wanted it to gain rapid traction among the cultural elites, you would never choose women as your primary witnesses.
Right. From a pragmatic standpoint, you would pick a prominent Pharisee.
Exactly.
Or a respected Roman centurion. You would find an influencer with instant social credibility.
But God bypasses the religious elite, the scholars, the politicians, and even the 12 apostles.
Yeah.
He entrusts this mandate to grieving women. This detail actually highlights the historical authenticity of the account.
How so?
Well, Matthew includes it because that is how it actually happened, regardless of how awkward it looked to the surrounding culture.
Ah, that makes sense.
It rebukes worldly assumptions about status. The narrative moves from seeing to telling. Revelation received becomes proclamation entrusted. They cannot remain as private admirers of a holy wonder. They must bear witness to the world.
And they are given a very specific geographical appointment.
Yes.
The angel says Christ is going before them to Galilee and they will see him there. Why Galilee? Why not stay in Jerusalem and parade in front of Pilate and the Sanhedrin to prove them wrong?
The choice of Galilee is a massive demonstration of grace.
Okay.
Galilee shows continuity with his earthly ministry, is where he first called the disciples.
Right.
Remember the state of the apostles at this moment? They had fled in terror.
They ran away.
Peter had publicly denied knowing him with curses. They had failed completely. But the risen shepherd does not abandon them. He does not discard them to recruit stronger, braver candidates.
Wow.
He orchestrates a reunion in Galilee to gather and restore his weak, failing flock.
I want to bring this directly to you, the listener.
Yeah, let's bring it on.
How does this apply to our daily lives?
Right.
Our sources point out a common hypocrisy. How often do Christians affirm the resurrection on Sunday, singing the hymns and reciting the creeds, but live like functional deists on Monday?
Oh, it happens all the time.
We confess sound doctrine, but then we are completely consumed by anxiety about the economy or our health or politics.
Right.
We are paralyzed by the cultural giants of our day. We worry about the future as if the tomb were still occupied.
The sources refer to this as practical unbelief.
Practical unbelief.
Yeah. Every overriding worry about the future, every compromise with cultural morality out of fear is a functional denial of the living king.
That is heavy.
Think about the Roman Empire and the Jewish religious establishment. If the greatest military and political powers of the ancient world could not contain the Savior, we must cease acting as though the cultural or political giants of our day hold ultimate authority.
Absolutely.
Living in perpetual fear of the world is completely incompatible with the reality of the empty tomb.
Which means the mandate given to the church is for bold proclamation.
Yes,
Our sources challenge modern, seeker-sensitive, pragmatic church models.
they do.
The angel didn't soften the message for the Roman guards to make it more palatable.
Right.
He didn't run market research to see what the culture wanted to hear before speaking.
Mission without divine revelation just degrades into pragmatism.
Right.
The mandate is for bold, authoritative proclamation of absolute truth. The church is not commissioned to preach a helpful philosophy for better living or a moral improvement program.
No.
We are sent with objective historical news. Jesus of Nazareth has risen from the dead.
Yeah.
The modern secular world constantly demands that we keep religion private, a matter of personal preference.
Yeah.
But Christ commands his people to go and tell.
There is also deep, abiding comfort here regarding grief.
Oh, absolutely.
We started this conversation talking about the absolute boundary of human mortality.
Right.
We will all face the grave, we will all attend funerals, but for the believer in Christ, death is a defeated enemy.
Christians do not grieve as those who have no hope. Death remains an enemy, yes, but its finality has been completely shattered.
Right.
The resurrection of Jesus is not an isolated event. The Apostle Paul calls it the first fruits of the resurrection of all those who belong to him.
Wow.
Because he lives, we shall live also.
Yeah.
The physical body that is lowered into the grave will be raised in incorruptible glory. This text brings mourners not just to fond memories of the deceased, but to a living Christ who actively holds the keys of death and Hades.
Let's recap the massive ground we have covered today.
We've covered a lot.
We saw the impenetrable human fortress of stone, imperial seal, and elite Roman soldiers completely dismantled by a single heavenly messenger.
Right.
We looked at the exact Greek phrasing to understand the monergistic action of God the Father raising the Son, providing the legal receipt that our sin debt is fully paid. We saw how the justification of the believer is legally secured by Christ's active and passive obedience.
Yes.
And finally, we explored, well, let's say we investigated the sovereign mandate to boldly proclaim this truth to the world, rejecting pragmatic compromises and functional deism.
We have seen that the empty tomb is the unyielding historical foundation of the Christian faith. It strips away the false refuges of secular philosophy, religious legalism, and mystical subjectivism.
Yeah.
It summons all people to turn from sin and trust in the crucified and risen Christ alone.
I want to leave you with a final concept to chew on as we close.
Okay.
Building on the very specific detail Matthew provides, that this event happened toward the dawn of the first day.
Right.
Consider the cosmic scope of this. This is not just about your soul escaping to an ethereal heaven when you die.
No.
If God went to such extreme lengths to physically raise the material, flesh and bone body of Jesus in actual human history, what does that mean for the physical universe?
Wow.
The empty tomb is the first dawn of an entirely new physical creation. That means your material bodily life right now, your daily work, your care for others, every mundane physical action done in faith carries eternal weight.
It really does.
It is not going to be discarded. It is going to be redeemed.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining this deep dive on Reformed thinking. As you go about your week, remember the absolute absurdity of human authorities trying to lock a bank vault from the outside to govern the realm of the dead. The grave is empty and the king is alive. What does that demand of you today?